Jonathan was talking about confirmation bias. Yes, we are all subject to confirmation bias, but our other scientific intuitions and our scientific discourse has allowed us to get around confirmation bias, to correct for it, to be worried about it, to talk about it. And we have all of these other non-optimal, quote, moral biases, which science can help us get around and correct for. And I think we have, that's the role of institutions, and I mean, we need good laws and good institutions to protect us from our moment-to-moment failures of moral intuitions. So, for instance, the fact that you and I are not disposed to give 30% of our money away, and if we could rethink it every morning as we look at our bank statement, and we know that rethinking it every morning is just going to cause us to give less and less away, but yet we have decided through dispassionate conversation that we really should give 30% away because that's, given the state of the world, that is the best thing to do. Well, then we should have a mechanism that allows us to do that, forces us to do that even when we're not up to the task in a moment-to-moment way. And that's just, science can help there, clearly.
Do you think that one pitfall along the way is the misappropriation of the term science or science-based policy? I mean, there certainly are a number of cases in the last 100 years or so. I'm thinking of the Soviets, for example, who, they said that they were attempting to institute a science-based form of well-being, separate from any kind of religious doctrine.
Yeah, well, I use science. I think science is. I would use science in the broadest possible sense of, when we're talking about truth and facts, and we're talking, about honest observations and honest reasoning, and so that means history is part of that. I mean, so JFK was assassinated in 1963. I mean, that's a fact. There's a lot of evidence that it happened. We know it happened. Anyone who would doubt it would be doubting it in the context of massive evidence. And is it a scientific fact that he was assassinated? Well, assassinations are not the sort of things we really talk about in science. But yes, it's a scientific fact that he was assassinated. I mean, so we're talking about a larger footprint of just truth claims that are well justified. And science is one band in that. But it's not the only band, but it's...
I think a term that would help us out here is the distinction between anthropocentric truths and non-anthropocentric truths. It is a fact that the Earth is the third planet from the Sun. It doesn't matter what we think of it. It's a fact that JFK was assassinated. These are non-anthropocentric facts. They really, really, truly happened. But then most of the facts that we deal with, or many of them, are what you could call anthropocentric facts. So Sam, it is a fact that you're a great writer. I mean, that you're an excellent writer. Now, is that a fact of the universe that is irrelevant, that is regardless of our brains and our evolutionary history, any intelligent creature elsewhere would realize that you're a better writer than most other people? No, it's an anthropocentric fact, but it's still a fact. When we grade our students' papers, we're making evaluations. We're not saying, who am I to judge? It's all relative. We're saying, you know what? This paper's better than that one. And that's an anthropocentric fact.
Well,
and that's what I was trying to get at.
Actually, I would carve that up a little differently. John Searle made a very, I'm sure other people have done this, but John Searle made a very clear distinction between how we get confused around subjectivity and objectivity. I mean, we can talk about subjectivity as a matter versus objectivity as a matter of ontology or as a matter of epistemology. And there's a lot of confusion here because there are ontologically subjective facts.
So what's an example?
So the fact that I have tinnitus and I'm hearing a ringing in my ear right now. Okay, that is a subjective fact about me. I can hear ringing. I can report it to you dispassionately. We could test my hearing and find correlates to it. I'm sure you could investigate my cochlea and find damage, etc. All of mind science, certainly higher cognitive mind science, is based on our correlating ontologically subjective facts with third-person objective facts about the brain, say. So someone comes into the lab, they say they're depressed, there's a whole phenomenology of depression, and we correlate that with physiology.
But moral facts aren't about my inner experiences. What kind of fact is Shakespeare was a great writer?
No, but
what kind of fact is that?
Well-being is about inner experience, and it has third-person correlates. But whether or not somebody is experiencing the greatest happiness they can experience is a ontologically subjective fact about them. But that doesn't mean it's merely personal or that we have to be biased in talking about it. And so when some people say I'm just being subjective, that can, in an epistemological sense, that means biased, merely personal, not at all scientific. This is just a whimsical impression. That's not, we're not constrained to that kind of talk when talking about subjectivity. I mean, it's, for instance, and again, it also doesn't matter whether we can ever get the facts in hand. So here are two questions. At the moment JFK was shot, how many birds were in flight over the surface of the Earth? We have no idea. We will never know. No Manhattan Project could get us that information, and yet we know there's a numerical answer. Okay? At the moment JFK was shot, what was his last conscious thought? We're never going to know. It is scientifically true to say that there is an answer to that, whether we could ever get a purchase on it. And I can tell you a wrong answer. He was not thinking that, his last conscious thought was not, boy, I hope I live to the year 2010 so I can watch the 4th season of Mad Men. Anyone who would think he was thinking that is almost certainly wrong. And so that's just, we're not, there is no problem in talking scientifically about human subjectivity or the subjectivity of any other system, and we have to admit that we can be right and wrong about it. That's the only constraint.
It seems to me as if the premise of your book can be stated succinctly by saying that there are non-anthropocentric facts like physics, that is the true regardless of what kinds of creatures we are, and then there are moral facts, and moral facts are non-anthropocentric facts. That's, I think, what you're saying. And I think that's not true. There are moral facts. I'm not a relativist. I'm not somebody who says, oh, well, I like kindness, but you like genocide, or whatever your example was from your TED Talk. Our choice is not between non-anthropocentric facts and subjective wispy nonsense. Our choice between different kinds of facts, and there are a lot of facts like about whether someone is beautiful, whether something tastes good, whether something is ethical. These are facts of a kind. They're never going to be the facts of physics, and I think you want to make them.
No, okay, but again, it's not as, it doesn't fall into those bins. I'm not saying that morality exists like the Platonic form of the good, independent of human experience. It is dependent upon experience. I mean, we're talking about experience.
So it's an anthropocentric fact.
But it's not anthropocentric in the sense that, I have money in my pocket. Do I really have money in my pocket? Well, yes. Is it really money? Well, it's paper, and it's only money because as a social construct, we've agreed to call it money. And we could decide it's no longer money. So it's not a fact like money. It's deeper than money. That I would say is a truly anthropocentric fact. Money is a socially constructed. We've agreed that it's money, and we could change our view, and it's really it's completely contingent upon our deciding how to play the game with it. Clearly, moral facts and the possibility of flourishing reaches deeper than that, in the sense that we could all be ignorant. In fact, we surely are ignorant